Hey everyone, welcome to hashtag Malkin Live. This is going to be, I hope, an educational show, an empowering show for you today. And I know that so many of you are feeling black-pilled after the weekend's activities all across the country. The mob has been escalating. You know, they're not taking it easy. These people never take a break. And I wanted to share with you a couple of videos to sort of set the tone for today's show. If many of you joined me over the weekend, I want to thank you for tuning into the telethon that we had for Stephen Baca, the young man in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who is being prosecuted by a Soros DA, Raul Torres, for defending himself in one of these early melees riots, June 15th, actually, a little more than 2 months ago. We have now collectively, all of us who care about this case, raised more than $53,000, and I extended the deadline for the fundraiser. I absolutely want to get to that $100,000 mark. You know, it's got a lot of symbolic significance because $100,000 is about the amount that George Soros donated through one of his political action committees to Raul Torres. And it seems to me that those of us in the movement for America First, the movement against this mob that has hijacked our country, could at least raise that amount, that same amount, for this young man who exercised his right of self-defense and doesn't have a lot of big name con Inc., big con influencers, and we'll talk more about big con with our guest coming up. But take a look at these videos, and I know some of you have seen this over the weekend, but let's see. The first one is going to be from New Mexico, where an unhinged state Democratic legislative candidate and his cronies marched into a white suburban neighborhood where a police union chief lives. Here we go.
I'm a black man being terrorized by this fucking Klansman right here. We are terrorized by the Grand Wizard. Y'all got the Grand Wizard living in your goddamn neighborhood. All the Klan exists in Hugo, Minnesota, and it's right here. Don't run now. Don't run now, racist white people. I'm here. Oh yeah, we pull up. We pull the fuck up. Over here. Come on over here with your Blue Lives Matter sign. Blue Lives ain't shit. And if people in Hugo don't support black people, fuck Hugo, Minnesota. I meant to say that. Now we can get to what I was talking about. Black skin, I'm a black.
All right, keep that scene in your minds. Let's go to the second one. Oh, there's a sneak peek at our guest, Jack Kerwick. Hi, Jack. Hey. We're going to see you in a second. I'm my own producer here. So
that's
the
all right.
second one is from Drew Hernandez, and this made national news, of course. The scene of a young truck driver beaten to a bloody pulp. And let's see. Let me pull this one up real quick. Twitter's actually protected it, so they've labeled it quote unquote sensitive content, of course. And let's see, here we go.
Fuck is you talking about? Bitch!
Go to sleep, pal. Go to sleep.
Chill. Fuck is you talking about? Bitch!
Go to sleep, pal. Go to sleep.
So, and I think a couple of seconds right after that, the main assailant, a man who's been identified as Keith Love, a Black Lives Matter security staffer, drop kicked him in the head, very reminiscent of Reginald Denny and Damian Williams from 1990.
So, you still there? Some technical difficulties. I can't see or hear you.
Hey there.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
glad you were here for them. And the last one is from Kalamazoo, Michigan. Sorry to drop out on you guys. I'm still here. The last one is from Kalamazoo, Michigan. This is the Proud Boys in a scrum with Black Lives Matter. Here we go here. So hard to watch. I mean, to me, it's a roller coaster of white pills and black pills. And let me just bring in my guest right away here, Jack Kerwick. Hey, Jack.
Hey.
All right. I'm going to let people know about your professional pedigree, and then talk about the sort of different type of show that we're doing today on self-defense, and this idea that people really need to be ready to fight back if they're going to pay lip service to fighting back against the mob. Jack Kerwick has his doctorate in philosophy from Temple University, specializes in ethics and political philosophy with a particular interest in classical conservatism. Your work has appeared in scholarly journals, popular publications, and you're the author of 4 books. You teach philosophy at Rowan College at Burlington County, New Jersey. And I, of course, have just recently read your terrific essay in this new book. It's a compilation of essays edited by Paul Gottfried, The Vanishing Tradition: Perspectives on American Conservatism. And yours is the very first chapter called Big Conservatism and American Exceptionalism. I highly, highly, highly recommend this. And we can definitely get into this, into the subject of the essay. But really, I have you here today because you reached out to me, and I didn't know this about you. You are actually a self-defense warrior. Is that a good way to put it?
Oh yeah. Listen. I mean, we in this art in which I'm training, we train to be warriors, and by that, what I mean is, we don't train for competition. We don't train for any contests. This is not sport, right? I'm being trained by the founder of my system. It's called Warrior Flow Combatives. The founder is a man named Al Ridenhour, who is a retired United States Marine Corps lieutenant colonel. I think Al has been in 6 tours of duty, over 100 combat operations. People can you mind if I give his website out?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to. Yeah, because this is great stuff. It's protectyourself.mykajabi, KAJABI.com. Protectyourself.mykajabi.com. So Al's very impressive pedigree. He's trained elite forces. He trained Marines in unarmed and armed combat. And I train specifically at this school, which is Warriors Way Combatives. It's up in North Jersey. It too is co-owned by 2 Marine veterans, Mike McNulty and Kevin O'Leary. And I train out in Lancaster. Sometimes we have to go different places, but a guy named Art Reynolds out in Lancaster, he's in the process of getting his own school now. He is, 40 years in martial arts. He's bouncer, security, that kind of stuff. These are all great guys, and they've taught me so much. But what we do is we train for war. Colonel Al trains his students the way he would train his Marines, preparing them for war. We don't get into the street brawling bullshit. There's no bar brawling these are all kind of glorified versions of the proverbial schoolyard fight for adults. We don't dick around with any of that stuff. This is just for when our lives, the lives of our loved ones, or the lives, say, of your loved ones, of innocents who happen to be in our presence, are physically imperiled. If and when that happens, then it's war.
Yeah.
And the outcome in war. So that's the mindset. And speaking of that, okay, well, I won't go on any further. If you want to take it to the next question, that's fine.
So tell us practically what this means. Is it a combination of traditional martial arts and with a military mindset sort of wrapped around it? Is it jujitsu? Is it,
Right.
And it's funny that you talk about this idea of training for competitions, because that was always something I was wary of when I enrolled I've got two kids. My youngest is a boy. He did karate, and there's this sort of pejorative term, McDojo.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So is that what we're talking about here? Is like, that's the contrast between that sort of performative type thing and then actual practical training.
No, that's an excellent question. See, the classical or the traditional martial arts, that's a beautiful thing. And I'm closing in on a black belt actually in Tang Soo Do, which is a traditional, Korean-based martial art. But it is okay. So in some of my writings, and these are writings that I've just started working on this past year, I've contrasted what I call martial arts as sport with martial arts as war. And so these sort of, strip mall, and I don't mean to make that sound pejorative, but this is the experience, right? That kind of strip mall dojo with the karate signs out front, or even the Brazilian jiu-jitsu stuff. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful people that go in there, some very physically talented, agile people, but they are training students for, for aesthetic purposes. They're training them to sort of master these traditional forms, or for competitions, for victory in the dojo or on the mats, right? So all that's great. But if you're interested in learning real self-defense, then you have to train in martial arts as war. And let's not forget, right? I mean, it's easy to forget this because the commercialization of the martial arts and the sort of tailoring of the martial arts to the legal, political, cultural mores of contemporary Western societies has made us forget this. But martial means of or pertaining to war.
Yes.
The martial arts are the warrior arts. These are arts of war. So historically, the progenitors of these martial arts that are popular today, these were warriors. These were people who were using what they learned to kill the enemy. But of course, I guess because these martial arts studios, they want to, they want to make a buck. They want to welcome in families and stuff. I guess they think that's just kind of a bad word to say. My master is very upfront about this, and he tells people, and it doesn't matter, who you are, how old you are, whether you're a man or woman, black, white, or other. He tells all of his students, and this is the mindset that he's cultivating us in, that he is teaching them how to kill the bad guys, right? And that is, if you are jeopardized, right? And again, this is, you avoid trouble, but if you are jeopardized, then you have to be willing to go to that place, or else you could trip yourself up and then wind up, being injured or killed yourself.
Yes. So of course you can see why this now takes on like a political context.
Right.
Because there's a lot of frustration. And you mentioned to me in one of our communications that you had watched what unfolded in Denver at a Back the Blue rally that I had attended. And there's a lot of different perspectives on whether it was handled correctly by the people who were participants.
Right.
And obviously I will not dress in big hoop earrings and
No, right.
platform sandals anymore, because we are dealing with Black Lives Matter thugettes who come in all black combat boots and collapsible batons. That is what we're dealing with. And, you know, the thing is that I had private security. I was with someone who was a prominent state politician. You know, there were bikers for Trump there.
Wow.
There were plenty of people who were carrying. And in fact, you know, one way to look at it is that one way to interpret it is that they were exercising an enormous amount of restraint in not pulling their weapons.
Right.
And, you know, there were a handful of people who were assaulted, a couple of people who were hurt enough that they had to go to the ER. They were bloodied, but there was none of this sort of hand-to-hand combat or show of force that might have, I don't know, I'd like to get your take on it, that might have precluded it from from unfolding the way it did. And I'd like to get your take on it, because you obviously saw all the video of that.
Right. Now, I would say a few things. Okay. I mean, I personally will not attend any rallies unless and until they are organized by someone with lots and lots of resources in money and influence. In other words, the only rally I would ever give any consideration to attending, first of all, would have to be a just cause, obviously. And secondly, I'd have to know in advance that there's going to be huge numbers of fellow supporters that would show up. And the reason I say that is because when it comes to these sort of spontaneous grassroots kind of rallies of the sort that, you know, you were at in Back the Blue, they tend to get overwhelmed by larger numbers of left-wingers. And so, first of all, the optics are bad. The media can exploit that too easily to make it seem as if the rabble rousers, right, the punks, the vermin, are more popular than these kind of freaks, you know, these abnormalities that you and I would regard as patriots. That's first. Secondly, because the left has already demonstrated repeatedly that it has every intention of being violent, I would say if you're going to show up at a rally of that sort, you got to be prepared for violence. And, you know, you saw this is just one example, comes to the top of my head. There was that one Protect the Monument rally out in St. Louis a couple months ago. And there was that one that one picture of an older man saying a rosary and getting beaten.
Yes.
Okay. Again, God bless that guy. You know, his heart was in the right place, but his head was out to lunch. There's no honor in, or there's nothing commendable about standing there and allowing yourself to get pummeled by punks. I mean, it's just not. So I would say, like, if someone like a Rush Limbaugh, right, or a Sean Hannity or a Mark Levin, you know, people with huge numbers in their audiences, and with hundreds of millions of dollars between them, if they decided to do a little bit more than just talk and whine and bitch and moan about the left's double standards on the air, maybe things could have changed decades ago, right? So, you know, I heard Sean, and I know you, I think you've known him. I think he used to be on a show years ago, right?
Yep.
But, and I don't know, you know, what's happened between you two, but, you know, I mean, he seems like a good enough guy. It's just that, you know, the other day I heard him on the air, and he's talking about the defunding of the police departments in different cities and the lawlessness and the spike in crime. And he says, you know, most people aren't like him. You know, he's a self-defense fanatic. He trains, you know, 5 days a week, he says, an hour and a half each day doing his, you know, mixed martial arts. You know, he's been a marksman from the time he's a teenager, right? He's saying all that. Most people aren't like him. You know, he's ready to defend himself, apparently. Most people aren't. So what does he do next? He plugs the commercial for a home alarm system, right? Right? Listen, nothing wrong with the home alarm system. But why are these people so reluctant to try to lift the spirits of the millions of people who have been following them for years. Sean, how about trying to, offer some how about do something more? I mean, what Sean Hannity did do a couple months ago, before the George Floyd thing, a couple months ago, when the anti-lockdown demonstrators in Michigan besieged the Capitol building and they were armed, right? Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Right? What did Sean do? He criticized them for showing up there with their guns.
Yeah.
And then at the end of his show, he was sure to let those of his audience members who didn't see The View to know that Joy Behar gave him props for that. Right? Okay. Right. I don't want to just single him out, but he's just an example of what I'm talking about this, big conservatism, the big con. These guys could have been doing a whole lot more than they've actually done over the years to prevent us from arriving at this point. And they
absolutely didn't. And to add to that, of course, it's not enough for them to just be quiet while other people try to organize and do this for themselves, right? No, they've got to go out there, virtue signal, and then trash anybody who comes under fire by left-wing prosecutors. And this is certainly the case with the Proud Boys, and I wanted to get your opinion on them as well. I mean, they've been out there. They were among the first of these types of groups. There's the 3 Percenters, there's Patriot Prayer, a number of these groups. And actually here in Colorado, I think largely as a result of what happened at the Back the Blue rally last month, there are now retired military special ops guys who are organizing, and they're very serious about the show of force. So that's that goes with what you said about if you're going to do it optically, you need to outnumber them, not the other way around. Okay. But Proud Boys, their heart is in the right place. They're this fraternity of young men all across the country. Gavin McInnes founded it primarily as a way to have a social club, right? And they never intended to be what both the left and the big con people deride them as, quote unquote, street brawlers, right? But so here's the thing: is that let's just paint a scenario where you had a Proud Boys chapter, in Philadelphia or in South Jersey somewhere, and they were all trained in the same methods that you're training under, and then they used them. Well, we still have to deal with a criminal justice system that's going to treat them every single time as the initiator of violence, right, rather than people trying to mitigate it. That's right.
Yeah. Well, I would say this about the Proud Boys. I mean, I appreciate that these guys, want to go out there and I appreciate that they're willing to defend themselves. And I know they're not looking for trouble. They're going out there to partake of these rallies and then they're being attacked But when the Proud Boys do mix it up with people, it does amount to street brawling, right? They're throwing punches back and forth. And I'm not saying they're wrong for throwing punches back. It's those who initiate the aggression who deserve to be punished. What I'm trying to impress upon you, though, and I'm trying to be kind of delicate about how I do this, only because
you don't have to. We're both from South Jersey.
Well, I don't want to get anyone in trouble, and I don't want to make the mindset in which warrior flow practitioners train is very different from that in which even your average Proud Boy is immersed, right? And these guys are thinking, we're going to go out there, and if anyone fucks with us, we're gonna, we're gonna brawl the way we would if we were in a bar or or anywhere else. And for those of us who are training in this art that I'm referring to today, we're not brawling with anybody, right? I mean, we plan on ending that shit before it even gets off the ground. All right. So what that means is, and this goes to the second part of your question here about what do we do, those of us who don't want violence, don't want trouble, but are also ready to defend ourselves by whichever means necessary. What do we do about prejudiced, partisan hack district attorneys and right? Well, listen, I mean, I think we need more people on our side, more people with legal resources, with legal expertise to start stepping up to defend those of us who may be unfortunate enough to get ourselves into those circumstances, right? But at the end of the day, Michelle, I would say, if you're out with your kids, I don't know if you pack or what, but there's other things you could do to defend yourself against a much larger attacker that won't necessarily require a gun. There's other things on your person right now that you could use as potentially deadly weapons, right? Keys.
Yes.
I suggest to some of my female friends that they carry, and I do the same, carry a little bit of gravel inside your pocket, right? Not the pepper spray, tear gas, that kind of, just gravel. I mean, biggest, strongest guy in the world. His eyes are as sensitive as yours and mine. You can just pick that gravel, fling it at him. I mean, so there's things you could do. But if you're out with your kids and it's a question of you and your kids or going to jail possibly, right? It's a no-brainer, right? In other words, you can't allow that concern. And I'm concerned too. I have an 11-year-old son. He was my only child. I don't want to go to jail, but you can't allow, and this is what I'm learning too. It's what I'm habituating myself to accepting. You can't allow that to clog your psyche. You're out and about, you're with your children, someone poses a threat to you and your children, you have to take them out before you have to incapacitate them by whichever means necessary to make sure you and your kids go home. Mm-hmm. And if that means later on, a trip to the police station, then you'll just have to cross that bridge when you get to it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Absolutely do. Yeah. So here's another scenario which we've seen play out in dozens and dozens of these videos that go viral on social media. You never see it in corporate media, right? Okay. But you have one or two lone young white men who then get besieged and mobbed. I mean, by an entire, cadre of huge young black men.
Right.
What do you do in that situation? I mean, short of having an arm, right, or a weapon and firing it, and then facing prosecution like Stephen Baca is.
Right.
Are there martial arts, or are there things that you're learning right now that you would be able to apply in a situation like that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, but I mean, like I said, when you're training for war, right? It's in this warrior flow. It's a variant of what's known within the martial arts community as close quarter World War II combatives, right? It's an elaboration upon that. But what that goes back to is these techniques, these combative techniques that were given to our soldiers when they were, drafted or when they enlisted in World War II before they went overseas, because it was anticipated that they would wind up engaging in hand-to-hand combat, particularly over in Japan, where at the time it was believed that a lot of these Japanese soldiers were being trained in the martial arts from the time they were, 2-3 years old. Mm-hmm. So here our service took these, these 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, right? Some of whom may never even been in a fight, from rural America, from wherever. And over a span of about 6-8 weeks, supplied them with a relatively small handful of lethal techniques. And it worked. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you don't need to train for years and years in a martial art in order to learn how to effectively defend yourself. So, I mean, think about it. I mean, you for as small as you are, right? And I'm saying that as a no, I'm saying that's a compliment. I mean, it wasn't meant as a criticism at all.
No, I know. Yeah. It's just a biological reality. I mean, come on. Yeah.
Right. I mean, but it's more. But you could punch the biggest, strongest guy in the throat, and as long as you're punching that throat as if you mean to punch it right through the back of that motherfucker's neck, you can kill. It doesn't take a whole lot to crush someone's throat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of areas in the body. See, the thing is, a lot of people aren't familiar with that kind of mindset.
Yes, particularly in the circles that we travel in, right? Or not travel in, but that we cover and talk about. And that's why it's so important to talk to you. And I mean, we need this kind of rawness. And I just want to read a comment that David Eckert just sent on YouTube to you. It says, Jack, you sound like a true patriot. You don't want to hurt anyone, but are prepared to kill if needed. This country needs more people like you to defend the Constitution.
Well, I appreciate that. No, and I do want to make sure that I'm not misunderstood here, right? Yes, I mean now because I've been a political commentator for about 12 years in my own little sphere here, right? And I'm a Christian, and I'm into philosophy, obviously. It's only because I've been writing for these mostly political publications that I'm now trying to use what I'm learning in the martial arts to see the connection between the two, right? I mean, when I first got into this, it was just and it still remains primarily for the sake of defending myself against whoever.
Yes.
Right? Irrespectively of politics or any other consideration. But when you look around the world right now and you see, just this lawlessness, and you see these radicals getting away with their bullshit with impunity. That's awakening a lot of people. I mean, you've seen the gun sales, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and I predicted at the end of May, I said, watch, June is going to be, or the beginning of June. I said, watch, June is going to set a record for gun sales. People see the police are not protecting them, right? And I know even in your own case, Michelle, I would also, well, you do what you want, but I was going to say, I would suggest don't attend any more Back the Blue rallies.
Yeah, that decision was made for me by my husband, my family, and my best friends after that.
Well, even despite what happened to you then, I mean, for the last, almost 5 months now, since the country has been interned, and that's what I call it the internment. I don't refer to the pandemic. I call it the internment because America's cities and towns and states have more or less been reduced to an internment camp by these power-hungry, politicians and their collaborators in the fake news industry. But for that amount of time, think about what the police have done in a lot of places. I mean, they've been expending their energy, harassing, mothers who want to go back to work, right? Right here in South Jersey, where you're from originally, Attila's Gym.
Right.
New Jersey, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, police were there breaking chops. So again, I have respect for individual officers. I do. I'm always respectful of the police. But at the end of the day, police officers are state agents. And as we've seen all over, they take their orders from their commissioners and their mayors, right? So I would say, you risk yourself to back the blue. The blue were there and didn't back you.
Yes, right? That's right. And just as a reminder to folks, the police union head came out and apologized, and they said that they would do things differently. They revealed that there was a retreat order, and there have been a number of these activist groups now who've gone ahead and done Back the Blue rallies. There's another big one scheduled in Seattle, but they are taking the advice that you're dispensing, which is they're showing up in force.
There was one conservative magazine for which I write. You know of it. I won't say it on the air because their editors, by and large, have been pretty good to me, and I do have a loyalty thing.
Yes.
But before all of this happened, this was near the beginning of this year, maybe even last year. So before the world went crazy in 2020, there were still instances of conservative students getting assaulted and bullied on college campuses.
Right.
So I wrote an article for one of these magazines, and I was encouraging conservative students to start studying self-defense. Because if you go out there wearing a MAGA hat, or you're setting up, one of your stands on campus, you got to accept that you're putting a target on your back. So I wrote this. Now, the editor told me that she appreciates, her words here, the call for manly self-defense, but it's not going to work for them. And the reason it wasn't going to work for them is, she said, because if something happened, it could come back on them. She said, or maybe even on me. Yeah. And I said, well, wait a second. I didn't specify anyone by name. I'm not saying these conservative students should go hunt down, Sean King or someone like that.
Right.
I didn't specify anyone's name. I'm just saying, listen, I'm giving them the same advice I would give my own kid.
Yes.
You're going to go out there and make a ruckus. You need to, first of all, know the environment. You need to have that situational awareness. That is key for self-protection. Now, if you choose not to go that route because you don't want to have to deal with the bullshit, don't go that route.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all in favor of being civil, being charitable, avoiding the trouble. But if it comes, you've got to be prepared for it. And a lot of these people are not.
Yes, absolutely. That is so interesting. I'm not shocked, but it's just, it's instructive, right? To hear somebody say this out loud. And there are a lot of these Con Inc. big con youth, right? Youth groups that are conscientiously, deliberately putting these kids out there to risk themselves and then not standing by them. And then the argument that I've heard, and I don't know if you've heard this as well, let them get sucker punched and let everybody see just who has the moral high ground. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, and boy, it's just, by the grace of God that, one of these kids who's sucker punched doesn't just fall back on his head and be brain damaged the rest of his life. Right. I mean,
absolutely. In fact, and you may have been listening to the same person who I was listening to when I heard someone say that. There was a kid who got sucker punched last year sometime, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Early this year or last year.
Yeah.
Right, on a college campus, got sucker punched, and this nationally syndicated conservative, talk radio host who I'd been listening to for years. He had me on a show once years ago, and I thought he had I didn't take him very seriously, but I thought he had a decent show. And I remember he said to one of his callers, oh yeah, but if that kid were to have fought back, then of course the media would make him look like the troublemaker. Who gives a shit?
Exactly.
Right? Who gives a shit? I mean, I wish the kid would have knocked the motherfucker's block off. Right? I mean, what are you thinking? How could you listen, Michelle? I think a lot of these, people who you were brought, you and I think are close to the same age. Right, we're probably brought up on most of the same people, right? I didn't get into politics till you hear about these kids now, like 10, 11 years old, getting political. I didn't know shit about politics till I was about maybe 18, 19, out of school. I didn't go to college yet. I went to work in a factory in Trenton, and I didn't know. The only thing I knew in the 80s. When I wasn't out getting into other kinds of shit. The only thing I knew in the 80s was that Ronald Reagan was president.
Right.
That's all I knew. But these big con media celebrities, these writers, here's the sobering truth. They talk about fighting, they don't even know what time of day it is. Mm-hmm. And they really don't. And I'm talking about everyone from the top, like Rush Limbaugh, all the way down to the fog, all the usual suspects. This is not to criticize them as people. It's not to detract from what good they have done, because at least they have had some influence in some directions. But what is? I'm looking around and I'm seeing what's going on. I'm saying you people don't even know what game you're playing. You don't. You don't have the stomach for war, right? I mean, you really don't. All they can do, and I want for all your listeners to really stop and consider what I'm saying, and then you tell me if you think I'm wrong. Whatever else they say, here's their only solution ever: vote Republican. That's it. I mean, am I right? Am I right or am I right? Right? That's it. That's what it all boils down to. Right? Vote Republican. You know, Sean Hannity's been saying it every election cycle for as long as I've been listening to him, probably about 20 years. This is the most important. You know what I'm going to say, right? This is the most important election of our lifetime.
Yes.
Okay. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's why I've actually disengaged from politics somewhat. I have, because you know, I went through a divorce not too long ago. I wanted to start getting my head in the right place, and I just got tired of the bullshit. And when I listened to the people who I used to listen to, it's the same old bullshit. There's never any prescriptions, any real solutions. It's always the same thing.
Yes.
They talk about the left as being the snowflakes, right? You hear that?
Yep.
Who's the real snowflakes?
Yes.
Right? The left, who at least sometimes goes out there and tries to get shit accomplished, or these conservative radio and talk show hosts and scribblers who always whine about how the left doesn't like them, or how the left has double standards. Well, of course they have double standards. They're the enemy.
Yes.
They're
Yes, of course. Yes. And this one. Well, why haven't they condemned X,
Yes.
Y, Z? Oh, well, that'll help things. Right?
Yeah, I wonder why that is. I'm sure too. I mean, it's such that's why I came up with, you know, I know Paul, our mutual friend Paul, you know, Paul's been in the trenches for a lot of years, taking a lot of arrows, right? Tough guy, smart guy. But you know, I know everyone calls it, you know, Con Inc. I guess I wanted to be a little more original, and I just came up with, you know, you heard of big oil, big. How about big conservative? And I shortened it to the big con. I thought the double entendre there was kind of clever.
Yes, yes, I love it.
All right, great.
A couple of questions from commenters, and one is, what if you're older?
Well, listen, we're all getting older. You know,
That's for sure.
I'm 48, but I tell you what, after training with these guys, and you really have to, I mean, I have articles out there on this art. I'm going to be writing more. I think my next book may even be exploring the theme between warrior flow combatives and politics. I think that's going to be my next project. They will teach you to move your body in ways that either you've never moved it before or you haven't moved it since you were a child. Mm-hmm. That's what this is about. So, I mean, they specialize in training older people. One woman who I trained with out of Philadelphia, she is 75 years old. She's a retired school teacher. She's probably about, and I haven't seen you in person, right? But I would guess probably about your height, maybe, right? Mm-hmm. In 75, and she moves like a cat. And when she moves to kill, mm-hmm. right? I mean, again, you know, fortunately, she hasn't had to do that to anyone, but she is primed. She is ready. That's how Colonel Al, Master Al, you know, has trained her. That's how she trains. Again, 75 years old, and she has like cat-like reflexes. And when she does move, she moves with intention, meaning she moves with a thought. She moves to strike anyone who would be deceived by her diminutive countenance.
Yes, yes.
So that is so yes. If you're not in Jersey or New York or Pennsylvania and you want to train in this art, they have I gave you Al Ridenhour's website.
Yep.
They could also look up Warriors Way Combatives. They can look that up too.
Okay.
And there's e-training. You can actually go online. They can sign up and they can actually train at home if they need be. There's a bunch of instructional videos there and stuff.
Sounds great. Question.
Yes.
Another question. Do you lift? Do you weight lift?
Yes.
Is that part of your training?
It's not
Or
necessarily
supplements?
not necessarily part of their training. It's what I've been doing probably from when I was off and on, probably from the time I was about 6, 7 years old. I think I was getting picked on a little bit. My dad went out. It was probably back like late 1970s. You know, my father went out and got me this like 30-pound pair of, I don't know if you remember this, but you know, they were a pair of
sandbags. Yeah.
It was like sand weights. That's the kind of back then.
Yes.
And the barbell was about this big, and got to be a little punching bag. Used to wrestle with. So I was kind of exposed to it from a young age. But yes, I do lift weights regularly. Yeah,
okay.
Having that strength helps.
And so a lot of people are asking about the specific nature of the martial arts that you train in. People have wondered, is it like Krav Maga? Is it Jiu-Jitsu?
No.
There's no name for it, but Warrior Flow is what you're training at.
Warrior Flow. If you go online, there's something out of Canada that's called Warrior Flow. It's not the same thing. Warrior Flow, which is really Warrior Flow, is short for Warrior Flow Combatives.
Got it.
This is right here in the U.S. of A, and it's so you know it's in this area that I was telling you, but you can look it up. No, it's not Krav Maga. It's not Krav Maga at all, but it is, and it's definitely not jiu-jitsu or Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Definitely not. Brazilian jiu-jitsu is more sportive, more contest oriented. But yeah, I'd say look it up. You can look up my writings on it if you want, and find out more about it.
And people can find your columns and at beliefnet.com.
Correct.
And yes, you've done, let's see, The Martial and Moral Virtue of Ruthless Intent is, I think, your most recent.
Yes. Yeah. I put that up yesterday, I think. Yesterday, 2 days ago, something like that.
Let me see if I can share that as a screen as well. And in the meantime, another question for you, which is one of the tactics that we've seen in these mob environments is the use of female Antifa and Black Lives Matter. I ran a video clip over the weekend at the Albuquerque riot 2 months ago that Stephen Baca was involved in. And what you see from the surveillance cameras is you have this phalanx of women who are the ones who are sucker punching.
That's right.
The civilian militia types. And then, of course, in Portland and Seattle, you've got the wall of moms, right?
Oh, yeah.
Who perform for the cameras during the daytime and then at night are as violent as the rest of them. Right. How would you handle that?
Like I said, doesn't matter how old a person is, what color, religion, gender a person is. If someone if someone breaches what in Warrior Flow we call your sphere of influence, and your sphere of influence is this, right? My fingertips right now are extending out to my sphere of influence. Someone starts to approach that sphere of influence, and they're coming at you with intention, meaning you could tell they're being aggressive. At that point, you have every reason to think that they may try to harm you. And I don't care who they are. If they try to harm you, you got to treat them as the threat you are. So, just because a person has female parts doesn't make her any less of a potential threat. I can't divine someone's intentions, or I can't divine their mindset. So I would handle that person the same way I would handle, a 6'7", 300-pound muscle-bound guy.
Gotcha. Okay, so do you carry?
No, I don't. Remember, I'm in Jersey.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
But in all seriousness, though, I am serious about that. But I also I don't have enough training for to really trust myself at this point with a gun. Anyhow, I do have a gun. I got a legal, I got a permit for my handgun back when I was in my early 20s. Then I went away to school. I left the state, and so I haven't fired off a gun since then. But from what I'm learning from my own instructors is that I actually am training how to use a gun. Why? Because a gun, like a knife or any other artifact, is just an extension of your natural weapons. So if I can move in ways, to destroy the enemy with my hands and my elbows and shoulders and feet and legs, then I can do the same thing with a handgun or any other weapon. But I still would prefer to train more in gunfighting before I ever, try to carry anything.
So hand-to-hand combat then is your preferred method. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
mine. That's mine. Now, again, I mean, in any number of things right now, just in I'm looking at your, at your home right now. I mean, there's any number of things there I'm seeing that could easily be converted into a lethal weapon, right? A pen, you could drive that pen right through someone's temple or eyeball or throat, whatever need be. And again, I don't mean to be, I know I sound very graphic right now, right?
Yeah, well, we have to be.
but the more people talk this way to themselves and more they hear others talk this way, you become desensitized to it and you can make it your own. Listen, I think these guys with whom I train, I think they're doing the Lord's work. They take the right to life very seriously. They value, innocent life. They want to see people make of themselves warriors. They want to see people assume protection for themselves. And I want the same thing, right? I despise bad people. I despise bad people because they hurt good people. They hurt innocent people. So I want to see good people defeat the bad people. And the only way we can ever hope to really get there, and this is, just what I've been learning through my own training, is we have to be willing to go all of the way if it comes to that. There can't be any prophylactic measures, right? No half measures.
Yes.
So that self-talk is so critical because we're changing ourselves depending on how we talk to ourselves.
Yes.
And that's what we need to do.
Yes. The mindset is so important. And, I've been in public life for some 30 years now, and I grew this reputation as somebody who is combative, who is aggressive,
And you are.
Right. And as willing to speak in candid, salty ways. I mean, I think that's a South Jersey, Philadelphia thing, right? But I always tell, especially young women, when I speak on college campuses, that I wasn't always this way. And it wasn't until I landed at a very hostile college campus that I had to decide, to unleash the inner beast. And I guess that's why I never really fit in a lot of the Beltway swamp, big conning circles, is that I didn't have that same, I don't know what you call it, but it's just this sense of, part of it is passivity, part of it is just capitulating to this moral imperialism of the left.
Can we call it pussification?
Yeah, there you go. Total pussification.
Okay, all right.
And so, I guess what I'm saying is that you can change your ways. I mean,
That's
you can
right.
change your frame and change your mindset.
That's right.
And you have to do that first before you get to where you are. Yes.
Exactly. Oh yeah. I mean, listen. I mean, I'm doing it myself. It's not, no, and that's the whole philosophy of Warrior Flow. Remember, the guys who I'm training, the guy who founded this, right? I said he's a military man, but he is the first to underscore that warriors are not born. They're made. And he said, just because you're in the military, first of all, doesn't mean that you're a warrior. a lot of people in the military who are not warriors. But also, it doesn't mean that only people who are in the military are warriors. I mean, these guys were made into warriors through training. What he's trying to do is train people in a way to make them into warriors as well.
Yes.
And so this is all an act of self-creation right here, right? And it requires work, but you start changing both your psychology and your physiology, and your actual genetic expression by the training, because how you think affects how you feel, and how you feel affects how you think. How you move your body affects how you feel and how you think. So there's this synergy between these different aspects of your person. The training is aimed at the whole person. So just as, I'm making myself into this person who I want to be, I believe other people can do the same. That's what the philosophy of Warrior Flow is all about, that. But it's real fighting. It's not dojo sport, sparring.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
Performative thing.
Again, which is all, because even those forms that your kids are probably working on, those forms, they in their original historical context, they meant something. I mean,
right.
They were really right. They were practical. Since then, they've been kind of wrenched from that context. And so when we see people practicing them sort of in isolation from that history, you wonder, like, okay, it's kind of flowery, kind of beautiful, but not very practical.
Right.
Well,
we have a couple minutes left, and so I have a couple questions for you, and
sure.
And one is just about your own physical health and diet. Do you have everybody has a diet. They do keto, paleo. Do you have one or the other?
I eat whatever's in front of me. I do. And I tell you, if I have steak, the bloodier and rarer it is, the better.
There you go.
I am an unadulterated, I'm an unreconstructed carnivore. Yeah. And when I want ice cream, I'll have tonight, if I go to the boardwalk, I may even get a funnel cake while I'm there.
You're killing me. You're killing me. Okay. And then is there anything else that is part of your training regimen? Cardio? Do you box? Anything like this?
No. Say I lift weights, I train in my martial arts, and when it's nice, like it's been, summertime, I'll go for outside walks around dusk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I go someplace relatively quiet, not crowded. I'll walk, I'll think, I'll pray, but I'll walk a couple miles, so I keep weight off and stuff. So but that's it. No, I mean, I don't go crazy. When you're training to be, a warrior, as how Warrior Flow puts it, everything you do is part of your training. I mean, how you walk, make sure you walk with equilibrium, paying attention to your subtle muscle control and how the different parts of the body work in conjunction with one another, work moving more efficiently. It could be something, just getting a glass out of the cabinet in the morning to pour yourself a drink, the way you extend, the way your body moves behind it. All of this stuff is, believe it or not, part of the training.
Yeah.
Being on this show right now with you, trying to share thoughts about this is kind of deepening my own understanding of the art. This is part of my training. When I write, it's part of it. Oh yeah, it all. And by the way, those guys who I train with, they want to sign you up with.
I'm ready. Is there a Colorado chapter of the Warrior Flow?
I don't know if that's the case yet, but but again, there's also stuff you can see right on their website.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I'm definitely going to check it out, and I love this. I mean, the idea of doing everything with intention is definitely part of my MO and my philosophy, and following through. And meaning what you say.
Right.
I mean, the metaphorical application of this to the flaccid, passive, creatures of the Beltway Con,
Yeah.
big con, they definitely could benefit from this for sure.
Well, when I was training with Master Al, who I told you, who is the guy who's the lieutenant colonel, the founder of this system, he and I were talking actually about what happened to you out in Colorado. This is before I even made contact with you, but we were talking about this, and then we were talking about just these Republican, big con media figures, and I said, they a lot of them try to shy away from my articles dealing with self-defense. And I think I'm doing a service trying to draw more people's attention to the need to protect yourself, to take this seriously. It's not a game. And he said, and he's working with me, Colonel Al was, and he said, if we were moving, he said, okay, throw. So I threw and I hit him. He said, the reason why they don't want to talk about self-defense because they can't do that.
Yes.
And that really is, and again, you don't have, we're not talking tough guy stuff here. This is nothing to do about being tough guys. This is about just having some fortitude, just some will to speak out against what's going on and to help people, including themselves, right? Defend themselves when they're out there.
Yes.
And they just, I don't know. I mean, I would have thought that after the events of this past year, that maybe that mentality on the part of the big con would start to change a little bit. But already it seems like it's back to business as usual.
Yes. They always revert to form. They always do.
They really do.
Yeah. Well, Jack, it has been such a pleasure, and I highly encourage everyone to go to protectyourself.mykajabi.com for more information about the system that you use, as well as to visit beliefnet.com and look for Jack Kerwick. You've got your entire column archive there. Your most recent piece is The Martial and Moral Virtue of Ruthless Intent.
Ruthless intent. That's the mindset right there. Ruthless intent. The intent to strike, to end it.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yes, we definitely need that for our survival. Thank you, Jack. It was so great
you.
talking with you.
Awesome.
We'll do it again.
I'd love to.
Okay, awesome. Take care.